Generally speaking, emotional release, what's interesting about it, if we let it happen, and by letting it happen, I don't mean giving into the emotion, like if there's anger, I don't mean that we should necessarily verbalize it or go and beat up on people, that's not what I mean, but simply we can just let it arise in the body and pay attention to what's happening. And behind all emotions lies the intelligence of life that harmonizes the system. Usually behind emotions stands a belief. That's very often how it goes. But also a memory of something that's limiting. We could say something restraining. That can originate from this life or a previous one, or even several past lives. Emotion tends to be, it could actually be an accelerant on the spiritual path, provided that we would let all emotions express themselves fully. And once again, what I mean by expressing is to feel it, to fully feel it, and we allow the body to act the way it wants to act. And it is this life intelligence that will induce, for instance, trembling in the body, or tears, or even energetic movements, which will feel travel through different places in the body. Usually the deeper an emotion, the lower in the body it will manifest. Well, that's what I've noticed anyway. Traumas, for instance, tend to be localized low in the body. And fundamentally, we keep coming back to the same thing, but the emotions we mostly encounter are related to the feeling of lacking love, either to have been rejected or abandoned, etc. And on top of that comes either fear, sadness, or anger. There is a center in the body that corresponds to the natural rightfulness to exist, which is located at the plexus level. And that's really the center I mostly notice being tight and contracted during private discussions. That's where comes most of emotions. At least that's what I've noticed with people I speak to. It mostly evolves around here. But there can also be emotions connected to traumas and other deeper issues, and it's usually located in the pelvis. Or else there can also be emotions related to unspoken words, and the body will express it with sensations of tightness here. What's interesting with an emotion when we allow it to express itself in the body is that it usually comes with, if we pay close attention to the body, there's a rather precise message that comes with it. For instance, an emotion that comes with a neck pain means I'm having doubts, like a fear arising with the neck pain can mean I don't know which direction to choose, so the head doesn't know where to settle, symbolically, so the neck will become painful. There's also having heavy arms, feeling like we can't move them, and it's accompanied by an emotion. Now, that's the sense of powerlessness. I've come across that a lot, people whom as children have been constrained a lot, whom have been told not to do this, not to do that, without the possibility of expressing themselves. Well, when it is released, it is felt in the arms. When an emotion is released, several sensations arise afterwards. There's often a sense of lightness. There's a sense of calmness that gets a lot more intense. After an emotional release, people have a powerful sense of calm. They feel it a lot more strongly. And quite often, there's a sense of an energy flow, as if the body was getting back on track with a proper flow of energy. That can manifest as tingling and tickling in the hands and feet. And we can sense that everything's flowing properly in the body. So the realm of emotions is a really precious tool. And we shouldn't repress our emotions. Actually, we shouldn't repress anything. Exactly, we shouldn't repress anything, but rather try and feel it and let it be welcomed. Let all emotions sink in, may it be anger, fear, or sadness. All states, really, all states. All states necessarily operate through the medium of a body. And it's rather important to try and find the appropriate posture to accept them. Why accept them? Because the moment we refuse them, we automatically enter duality. Something happens and that provokes a sort of inner warfare, and it can go far and can go very far. So the very best posture there is, and all sages agree on this, they'll mention acceptance, but keep in mind that we are consciousness de facto, but we tend to believe we're not, so we think we don't know how to embrace what's arising, but what's truly important is to accept it, to accept that anger is here, and not to deny it. Accept that this or that particular emotion is present, whichever it may be. We're not here to put labels on emotions, impressions, states of anger or stress, etc. Everything, and I mean everything, is accepted the same way. Some things might appear more complex or difficult in relation to a life story, even samskaras for that matter, but I'm thinking a certain type of childhood or adolescence with certain parents, etc. But on substance, everything needs to be accepted and embraced. That's the very first step, and from that moment on. And by the way, from the start, do not reject anything. Try and avoid telling yourself, I'm angry, I can see it, but I'll try to get rid of it. No, that's not good. The very first step is to accept it. We accept that it is here. I know it, I'm aware of it, and I know I'm going to go all the way through it. It really needs to go all the way through. Emotions, anger, etc. The first step isn't to tell yourself that you're going to get rid of it, that you don't want it anymore. The first step is to accept that it's here. Consciousness is the one doing that, and it knows what it has to do. So it gets us through all sorts of challenges. That's how it is, but everything must be embraced. It's important. This path being rather introspective, and by introspection I mean that we don't stop at objects. For instance, we don't stop at thoughts nor at energetic states, but we'll rather dive deeper and deeper in calmness, in that sense of calmness. Pretty much every spiritual teachings propose that. All of them do, actually. Yep. So all spiritual paths go through stillness, inner tranquility, and metaphorically, you could say that this calmness is like a light. And when you lay a light in a dark room, this light will gradually, the more we reach calmness, the more this light will, well, picture it growing. I'm using a metaphor here, but this dark room is unknown to us, so we don't know ourselves in the beginning. We don't understand ourselves. So we'll go deeper and deeper, and the deeper we go, the more the light grows, the more this calmness grows, and the more we discover the room. So we'll enter the subconscious, and more emotions will arise, because the more we dig, the more emotion comes up. Then we go into the unconscious, and there we will see new things arising. But just so you know, seeing emotions arise after 10 years of meditation doesn't mean we're regressing or anything. I hear that a lot. So do I. I've lost all my practices because of some emotions that have shown up, and I don't know what's going on. Actually, those things were already here. We were just unaware of them. So it is normal that gradually, the more calmness deepens, the more what I sometimes call baggages, things that need resolving, will rise with greater intensity, like some deep issues, sometimes even during meditation, we can witness deep emotions passing through us without understanding what's going on. It's just transcended automatically. So do let it happen. And then comes a moment when there's none of that anymore. It's not presenting itself anymore. But also comes a moment where we realize that there's no one, so no one in command. So emotion being present or not is, in a way, none of our business anymore. Yep, indeed. Even if we were holding a posture of resistance to all that process, we'll soon come to realize that consciousness, I'll try and put words on it, it will increase the intensity of what we have to go through so that we can become aware of things. And the character can never win. The character is a simple projection, a simple object. Sooner or later, the seeker lets go. There's a letting go. He has no choice but to let himself be driven by life. There's no other way. And thus, inner understanding happens on its own. It happens unavoidably. It may take 1, 10, 1,000 years, doesn't matter, because There's no time, but it does happen. And what we often tend to do, but we're not aware of it, it's connected to reactions. It comes from objects which don't want to disappear or die, and they usually try and resist. But it has limits, this resistance, because in front of consciousness, nothing can resist. So sooner or later, everything crumbles. Things have to happen, and they will happen, no matter what. So we drop it. We end up letting go. It happens, and that's the moment when we come to realize that there was never anyone to hold the reins. There was no one. There is no one. It's always been like that. If emotions coming up regularly are recurrent and we feel powerless about that, there's no need to fight it. We wait for it to pass because it will pass. Emotions are like the weather, it passes. And we deepen calmness during moments more quiet. And once calmness is very solid and steady, emotional storms will become much easier to be embraced, to let it pass through on its own. Everything is settled. Things are getting settled a certain way. It is configured so that it can happen with great simplicity. Then it will appear as much more fluid, simple, and obvious to the seeker.